Desiree from Apple Valley Astrologer. So, I've had this question presented to me quite a few times before about the polarity phenomenon. Some people get what I'm saying when I explain opposite signs throughout the zodiac wheel, but they don't really understand how important yin and yang is correlated with this. And, for example, when you meet someone and they say, I'm an Aries, tell me about myself, and you start to generalize a bunch of Aries characteristics, and they say, no, I'm not like that at all. I'm not self-centered and, selfish or caring about myself all the time. I'm a good listener. I care about other people. I'm conscious of other people's feelings, which is usually the polarity Libra. So if you are an astrologer or have been in a situation like that before, and you just justified it by, oh, their moon must be something different, or they must have some sort of Libra signature in their chart. And then if you actually were to go and do their chart and you realize that they don't have a signature, how do you explain that now? I'm basically going to go back to basics and break this down for you and help you understand the phenomenon of yin and yang. I'm not going into huge Eastern philosophy concepts, if that's where you think I'm going with this. I'm trying to do similar to what Alan Watts has done. I think he kind of went more towards Eastern philosophy. Like, I know he was the translator and he understood it and all, but I think he kind of got wrapped up into it. But I'm strictly just looking at the polarity factor, especially with medical astrology, and the integration as a whole. And I'm also going to reference some different symbolism to show you how the polarity works. So I'm going to insert a clip from one of Alan Watts's lectures, but just so you know, I will show you how the yin and yang, essentially, or the polarity, has complete relevance to this, and how it has been a reoccurring fundamental theme throughout our entire existence and throughout ancient to modern astrology.
Can I help you to understand what yin and yang is all about? The words mean the shadow side and the sunny side of a... And so we get what we call the positive and the negative, as we have in electricity. You can't have electrical current without the positive and negative poles. You can't have a magnet without the north and the south poles. And you can't have one without the other. Explicitly, they're different, but implicitly, they're the same. Exoterically, good is different from bad. Esoterically, they're the same. And knowledge simply means the understanding of the unity of the opposites. The yin and the yang generate each other. They arise mutually, just as to be and not to be. You can't understand one without the other.
Alrighty, so I showed you that clip of Alan Watts talking about concepts with the yin and yang. Now I'm going to go over some esoteric yin and yang themes that are common throughout ancient cultures that are reoccurring in modern culture today. We have the self or individual versus others or people. And then sustainability versus survival. And then we can also use the one man versus God, or the correlation between the two. Let's go on that theme some more. Sin as opposed to Satan, or obviously the devil. Continue on that sort of theme. Life as opposed to death. Kind of going off of this one up here. So the limitations of man or mankind versus the limitless potential. Come on. Potential of spirit. actually picked those ones for a specific reason. I'm sure most people would have figured that by now. So we're actually going to put these in their place as the yin and yang esoteric themes throughout the zodiac dial wheel and break it down and show you how the polarities of the zodiac signs can actually be attributed to these esoteric themes. Alright, so while I was editing, I realized that my video is getting a lot longer than I wanted it to be. So just for the sake of being efficient and keeping some of my theology lesson videos down to minimal time frames, I'm going to break this video up into sections. And I'm going to start off the second video with the zodiac dial breakdown, and I'm going to now insert another clip from one of Alan Watts, one of his lectures, that correlates with the themes I was just talking about that I will later discuss in the part 2 of this video.
If you awaken from this illusion and you understand that black implies white, self implies other, life implies death, or shall I say, death implies life, you can feel yourself not as a stranger in the world, not as something here on probation, not as something that has arrived here by fluke, but you can begin to feel your own existence as absolutely fundamental. I'm not trying to sell you on this idea in the sense of converting you to it. I want you to play with it. I want you to think of its possibilities. I'm not trying to prove it. I'm just putting it forward as a possibility of life to think about. So then, let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time, or any length of time you wanted to have. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. You would have every kind of pleasure you could conceive. And after several nights of 75 years of total pleasure each, you would say, well, that was pretty great. But now let's have a surprise. Let's have a dream which isn't under control. Well, something is going to happen to me that I don't know what it's going to be. And you would dig that and come out of that and say, wow, that was a close shave, wasn't it? And then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. And finally, you would dream where you are now. You would dream the dream of living the life that you are actually living today. That would be within the infinite multiplicity of choices you would have, of playing that you weren't God. Because the whole nature of the Godhead, according to this idea, is to play that he's not. So in this idea then, everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality, not God in a politically kingly sense, but God in the sense of being the self, the deep down basic whatever there is. And you're all that, only you're pretending you're not.